Well, hello and welcome to The Point. My name's David Flavel and I'm the minister here, and it's great to welcome you as we continue our series Googling God, looking at the big questions in life. Today we're looking at who is Jesus. You can watch our previous talks at our website www.thepoint.life, and if you look very carefully as lockdown continues, you'll see my hair get longer and longer in each video. As we look at who is Jesus, we're looking at one of the biggest questions in life. This is one that people have Googled hundreds of thousands of times. But who is this Jesus that everybody is talking about? We're going to start by looking in the Old Testament at the Jesus who everybody expects. Isaiah 11:1-4. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. And Jesse was the father of King David. And this idea is that a descendant of Jesse, a descendant of King David, a branch will bear fruit. What kind of branch will this be? What kind of person will this be? The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the Spirit of the knowledge and fear of the Lord, and he will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes or decide by what he hears with his ears, but with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor of the earth. So here's an Old Testament prophecy from 700 years BC approximately, saying that there will be somebody who will come and rescue Israel, somebody who will come and bring justice, because those people knew that things were very unjust in their society and in their world. So a Messiah was coming, and he was expected. They were expecting somebody like Jesus, with the idea of providing justice for the needy and judging for those who are poor. You'd think that when a woman of ill repute came to wash his feet with her hair, that everybody would realise that yes, this was the Messiah. But they were outraged. How could the Messiah, if he was that, consort with a woman like this? You can tell a man by the company he keeps, and the Messiah would keep himself pure. So Jesus was both expected in being foretold in the Old Testament, and yet he did completely unexpected things, because people said, well, no, that's not what the Messiah is supposed to be like at all. And even today, Jesus still surprises, shocks, and upsets people who say, no, it's impossible for that to happen. Surely not. And Jesus is kind. People were bringing little children to Jesus for him to place his hands on them, but the disciples rebuked them. Means told them off. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant, he was cross. He said to them, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Truly I tell you, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it. And he took the children in his arms, placed his hands on them, and blessed them. Which contrasts very violently with the time when Jesus threw the money changers out the temple. Now this picture from Caravaggio doesn't get the outfits right, but it does get the aggression. Look at the anger there. Look at the fear in those who are being thrown out. This is a man who means business. Jesus is kind, Jesus is angry. And this Jesus died and everything went wrong. At noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, and at 3 p.m, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And that's from Psalm 22. When some of those standing near heard this, they said, listen, he's calling Elijah, because it sounds a bit like that. Someone ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a staff and offered it to Jesus to drink. Now, leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down, he said. And Elijah was one of the great Old Testament prophets and was supposed to come when the Messiah came. But with a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. And that was it. His whole ministry, all his disciples, everything he'd planned to do, That was the end of it. Or so you'd think. Yet on the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord, as you'd expect, because 3 days earlier they'd seen him being crucified. But the Christian claim is that this Jesus came back from the dead. So, this Jesus was expected, people were awaiting him, but he was unexpected. They didn't recognise him when he came. This Jesus brought peace, and yet he actually brought division and turned over the tables in the temple. This Jesus died, and he rose again. Who is this Jesus? Well, he's either a very deluded man, or he is who he says he is, the Messiah. Which brings me to my question. So this week's question is applicable whether you're not yet a Christian or whether you are a Christian. Whether you believe in God or not, why do you think this Jesus has had such an impact on the world? After all, he died in failure, and yet we're still talking about him today, all these miles away from where he was born, lived, died, and Christians believe rose again. So what is it about him? So what we'll do is, if you're at home watching on YouTube, then put the video on pause. If you're at home watching on Zoom, then I'll put you into groups and we'll get back together in a little bit. Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Next week's big question is, what is the church? But for now, here's my takeaways. So what must we do? Well, we really need to decide, who is this Jesus? It's such an important question. If Jesus was just a man, then we Christians are to be pitied more than anybody else in the world, because what we're doing is at best a waste of time, and at worst is deluding people. But if Jesus is who he said he was, then this is the most important thing in the world, and nothing matters more. What Christianity can never be is just moderately important. So, what will you decide?